reference manual, you guys know where this is, right? Did I show you this? It's in the announcements up front, but it is also in your week by week. You'll see that the studio reference is in here. This is what it obviously looks like, the MIA studio reference, tape session 1. This goes through basically the layout of it and the purpose. The neutralization we already went through, but how to patch and etc. in here. How to set up for Pro Tools, what you want to do within the Pro Tools session, which we've already done. Getting levels, step-by-step procedure in here. Dumping the tracks without sync, and then we're going to learn today how to synchronize using the Avid box. So a few things. One, we'll take a look at the transport, which is here, which you can see this little, as we're looking at it here, but we can see this little gen LTC. That means generate longitude time code, right? So, or linear, some people call it. This is generate MTC. This will not work to go to tape. It has to be gen LTC. But MTC, you guys have studied time code already. Sorry, guys. This MTC is obviously MIDI time code, which is a derivative of LTC, right? MIDI time code will allow you to literally sync and send out to keyboard end. So if you literally had a whole MIDI sequence in Pro Tools and you want to send that out to an old analog synth or an outside keyboard, you can send out MTC with it, and with also your MIDI. It will lock up with the machine, and then you can literally lock that sequence and send it out, bring it back in to your I/O and record it in real time, right? So the LTC, this is how we're going to generate the time code. The other button you need to look at within the sync, and if you may or may not, in your transport window, if you go over here, you can actually add the synchronization. It might not be in here in your transport, so you can just go in and add synchronization to it, and you'll see it show up here. This is your online button here. This basically says to Pro Tools, go into online standby mode and wait for Smpte time code to come in and tell the machine to start. So it's waiting for sync. Once the sync arrives, it will say okay and start playing and locking with that external sync. Okay. So let's go to back here. You will see the Sync HD is the top unit here, the Avid Sync HD. So this is what's actually locked to the computer and generating and receiving the LTC time code. Okay. You'll see the counter on the front of that will correspond and lock in with the counter of Pro Tools. There is two jacks right here on the patch bay. One says LTC in and the other says LTC out. So this is where we're going to send our sync from the tape machine to and from. Okay, so that we can do with one little XLR male to male Bantam jack. Okay, and I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. I'm going to show you a couple other things here on the sync side in Pro Tools. on your setup, there's a few spots. The peripherals at the gate, we're going to see synchronization here. There's a few key things that you need to know here. One is that your Sync HD is enabled. That is the Sync HD unit there. Okay. You're selecting this so that the Pro Tools will actually lock with the Sync HD, and that way you can create this time code and have all the pieces of gear locked together. Okay. The other main end that you really want to see here is your LTC output level. Right here, this allows you to change the output level of the Sync HD, which is then going to go to the tape machine to be recorded. So if the level is too low or too hot, this is where we're going to go to turn it down. So bring it down 3 dB to 0, or plus 3 dB here, right? So plus 3 dB here is going to literally get us to around minus 2.3 over there. Remember, we are aligning the tape plus dB hotter than 0, right? So you can see where this comes in play here as to the level on the machine. So plus 3 here is going to relate to minus 6 there, or minus 3 there, roughly, minus 2.3, right? So, one other thing I'm going to mention to you guys, just in passing while we're in this window, is the MIDI controllers. So, this is basically it needs to be in Huey mode. Now, this is Pro Tools. Here, you'll pick Huey and then port 1 in and port 1 send, receive and send. And in it is 8 channels. Now it's fixed at 8 channels because the Huey port is 8 channel. But you'll see down here on your audio tracks, you'll see the first 8 are in purple, the second 8 are in yellow, and the third 8 are in pink, and the fourth 8 are in green. First 8 are in purple, second 8 are yellow, third 8 are pink and green. So what this is this is the outputs of these channels, which are going to the console in the groups of 8, right? 8 channels, 8 channels, 8 channels, and that's why you see them in Pro Tools show up that way. So if you've done the Run EXP session terminal and it's going, but you're still not seeing it talking, first off, make sure you close Pro Tools entirely, then run the terminal, and then come back on the terminal, fire Pro Tools back up, open your session so it sends the information from the session to the console. But if for some reason that's not working, go take a look in your session here under the MIDI controllers to make sure that they're all on Huey and they're 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, 4 to 4. So that's 4 ports, right? 4 GUIs, 4 ports. Gives you 32 channels. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, so back to the synchronization. Basically, that's what you need to know there. The next end of it is our session setup. This you will see has format and our sync set up here and time code offsets, as well as time code settings. So some key things here. I mean, obviously in our session setup, we can see our sample rate and bit rate is in here, and our audio format, interleaved, all those selections that we generally will select when we're in our building our session, right, and creating that first initial session are in here. There are a few other things up here. One end is the Smpte time code here. The session start. So what's it going to start at? Here we've got hour 01. this is where the session is going to start striping Smpte timecode from. So back in the day, if I had like, 12 reels of tape, I would usually start my first reel at hour 1 and then let it run, and then my second reel I would start striping it at hour 2. Because reels were only like 33 minutes long, I was within an hour on each one, so it just allowed me to identify in the song start. If I looked at it and it said 4 hour and 0 minutes 0 seconds in subframes, then I knew that was reel 4 of tape machine. So that just kind of allowed me, it was a little trick I had that allowed me to decipher between which song was which reel. You don't have to, as long as your paperwork shows where you're at, but you need to know in your session you got to start that Smpte timecode somewhere that's going to correlate to it, right? So it's going to start writing, so you can start it at hour 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and it's going to start Smpte timecode recording as you're generating it through the machine up to 33 minutes and whatever to the end of the reel, right? In this case, we're only using a half reel, so you've only got like roughly 15 minutes on the back end of it, right? So, but you want to determine where you want your Smpte timecode to start it here. Next thing you want to determine is your frame rate. Most commonly in the audio world, we did in a day it was 30 frames per second. As video was happening, we started to deal more with the MIDI time, or started to deal more with a video frame rate of 2997 drop frame, right? And synchronizing within that. If you knew you were going to be hitting up with video later on, and or depending on 24 or 25 frame rate, we are running NTSC in your session setup here. The session length limit, I always just set it at 24 hour, which basically lets me, my song end is probably not going to be more than 24 hours. I've set it to the end of that, so I've got the most amount of playroom. Some people will say, oh, it's only going to be 10 minutes, but if you end up recording longer than 10 minutes, the session end is going to get kind of a bit weird. It will continue forth with it, but you're scaling it where I scale it at 24 hour and you're safe to go. I never worry about it at that point. Your timecode input here it just says timecode, but this is actually the input coming in that it's reading, the Sync HD is reading that timecode. This is very useful whenever you've got the tape machine and you're coming back in and you're trying to determine where is it, like is it seeing the time code? So if that counter is turning, then it's seeing the time code. So that means there's signal coming into the machine, so that's a positive sign. If it's not moving, then you better look at your connection because it's not happening. So this window can be a very good troubleshooting window as well. You can also see here if this is turning, but this might not be counting yet, it's because this might be a different value than within here, right? If we had an offset here, which we can do a sync offset, but maybe this was set to 10-minute offset, and this is actually counting right now and it's only at 8 minutes, well, it hasn't hit its offset for this to actually lock up and start playing yet. Now we say, well, why would you want that offset? Here's a prime example. Let's say we do our first song is from 0 to 5 minutes, right? And now we have a new session that is, the song is going to start at 5:10, okay? 5 minutes and 10 seconds. So I, on my second song, if we do that, what's going to happen is the session here, our first song will play here, but in our second song, when we open a new template, when the song starts recording, it's going to record it over here at the 5-minute mark, 5:10 over here is where it's going to start playing. So you're going to have 5 minutes of blank space in the beginning of your Pro Tools session. Now that might be fine. If you're okay with that, it's okay. But if you want it to start at the beginning of the session, then you can do a 5-minute offset. So in here, what we would do is go negative 5 minutes. So it would be hour 0 minus 5:05.0000. So what that means is the time code is playing, but the Pro Tools session isn't going to lock up till it hits that 5-minute mark. So if you're playing 4 minutes and 50 seconds, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 5 minutes, boom, at that point, now the Pro Tools is going to say, we've reached the offset of 5 minutes. Now it's going to start reading the counter, start reading at 0. But it's going to lock up and play. So it's going to start at bar 1, right? And that's how we can offset our Pro Tools session to what the tape counter of Smpte timecode is. Does this make sense to you guys? It's a little tricky, but I can show you this once we get into it, okay? But I just want you to understand what it's for and what it does and why. Why would you use it, right? So that's pretty common, especially if you had multiple songs on the reel, maybe one at 15 minutes, one at 20 minutes, one at 25 minutes, right? Then you can offset each one of those songs in Pro Tools so that they're all starting at bar 1, but they're offset by 10 minutes or 15 minutes, depending on where that song is. Okay? The Smpte timecode, you want it to stripe starting at 0 and run through the whole reel. Because what you don't want is new time code for each song. You want the tape to stripe right from beginning to end so that anywhere there's a break or an end, the machine will start, but it's not going to be starting over again, especially if a song runs over a little bit on your first song and you realize it's longer than, if you only stripe the amount of time of the song length, it would stop and the synchronization would stop and you'd be into some real problems there. So, cool. Next then is in your sync setup here, we want the clock reference to be internal, which basically means Pro Tools is going to set the Smpte timecode generation timeline. It's going to lock internally. So it's not waiting for an external source to tell it where it is in timecode value. It's going to sync to itself. The positional reference we want to be either LTC or auto LTC VITC, either one of them. They're both basically the same thing or a derivative of the same thing. But LTC is the main end, the longitudinal time code, right? And VITC is basically LTC and a derivative of. NTSC is basically our video reference format as well. So this explains this as its entirety. The last thing is at the bottom here where we talk about freewheel. Does anybody understand freewheel? You did talk about it in your classes before, right? But I'll just kind of go through quickly just to refresh your memory. Anybody want to be refreshed? So, time code is basically a communication hub, right? So, if you look at it, it's literally like Francois and I are going to go walking together. So, we're going to synchronize ourselves together. Okay, so what's going to happen is the time code is going to start to generate, or I'm going to send it back to him. So when we've locked I've already written my time code, so it's striped on the tape. And stripe is kind of a slang reference of recording the time code to tape. So I'm got it, and I'm gonna spit it out to Francois. So he's gonna literally listen to me, and I'm gonna say, okay, Francois, get ready, because we're gonna start here. And he goes, okay, I'm ready to go. And I'm gonna call it off and say, okay, go. 1 second, 2 second, 3 second. I'm also gonna be telling him all the little subframes in between that, right? But in layman's ends, I'm gonna say, okay, get ready to go. And we're gonna start with our left foot. And he's gonna go, okay. And then I'm gonna go left, right, left, right, left, right, okay? And he's gonna go, okay, 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 right? So we're locking together. Now this positional reference that is very important is us referencing the position and where it is. So as I'm talking with him, I'm telling him where we are in our march, and then locking in, and we're gonna lock our steps in, right? So it's very important that we have that communication back and forth. So I'm sending him the info, he's going, yeah, I got it, yeah, I'm in, I'm locked, right? See me, look at me, go, okay, we're the same, right? So this is what's happening with the synchronization in a very kind of simple layman's terms, right? Now, why I want to tell you this as well is because when we get into what we call freewheel, if there is no freewheel, as we're walking along and I'm talking to Francois and I'm telling him this information, but all of a sudden I start coughing, right? I've stopped the communication to him, and he's going to go, whoa, I'm not getting any information. So he's just going to stop walking. And then until I stop coughing, right, or that corrupted information comes back again, once it's there and I say, oh, sorry, man, I just had a bad cough. Listen, I'm at 2 minutes and 45 seconds, left, right. And he goes, yeah, okay, I got you, I'm coming. And he runs back up to me and he locks in with me again. And now we're synced again, right? So that's what happens when there is no freewheel. The moment a piece of information is corrupt or drops out or is lost, he stops. And if it's recording, this kind of sucks because it drops out of record mode. Now, it will jump back in play mode, but it won't jump back in record mode. So if you're recording and there's one little blip, it drops out of record and you can't finish the recording or transfer, right? So that kind of sucks. So what the freewheel is it basically says, in this case, I've set it for 20 frames. So Francois says, listen, Pete, I know you got a bad cough today. And so I've set my freewheel for 20 frames. So for 20 frames, I'm just going to keep marching at the pace that we've been doing. And you have 20 frames to get your cough over with and start telling me where you're at again, right? So in this case, it's like, and he just keeps going, and then I send him the time code again, and he goes, yep, no, we're good, I got it, right? And he'll lock back in with that and make sure that he's locked again. But for that moment, it drops out, but he says, it's okay, I'm just gonna keep going. Now, if we got to the 20 frames, and Francois goes, you got to stop coughing, man, because I can't hear what's going on. So I'm just going to sit here and wait till you're done coughing. Now, I'm keeping going, but I'm hacking away as I'm walking. Once that clears up again, Francois will now go, okay, I'm coming. And he'll catch back up with me and lock in with me again. Okay? So do we understand how freewheel works now? So it just allows it to run, and he'll just keep going at the same pace for 20 frames, just in case there's an error or a glitch. It will keep tracking. That way the whole system won't shut off, stop, and start again back and forth. It just keeps bulldozing through for 20 frames, hoping that it's going to correct, or a new chunk, that little blip is going to be over quickly and back, and he's going to hear the time code again and go, no, we're good, I got you, man. And just keep going. So that's basically what freewheel does. Cool? All right. So we've got all that. What we're going to do now is we're going to stripe this. You guys want to come on up and we'll just take a look at this up here so you can see. We want to make sure that our marker is not somewhere else in the song, because otherwise it's going to start here and that's going to start generating time code at 7 minutes and 28 seconds. Well, that's no good, because if we did that, when we went to sync the machine and the sessions at the beginning, we wouldn't get the first 7 minutes and 28 seconds of the song, because it would lock up and start chasing each other at 7:28, because you set this time code on there to start at 7 minutes and 28 seconds. So if our song's only 4 minutes long, you're not even going to get the song to tape. Right? That makes sense?
Yeah.
So it's very important that we click our little back to the beginning end. Don't drag it, don't grab it and bring it over. Just literally hit your left indicator all the way over. You can see, or just go in here, right? If we were at 1, we could go to 0 and set it. You can go into the drop down window here. Instead of being beats and bars or minutes and seconds, you can go to time code, and that sets up what the actual time code is going to be that it's generating. Because we told it to start at hour 0, that's where it's going to start. If I went into the time session start and set it at hour 0 or hour 1, the time code in this session would start at hour 1, right? So that's where the importance of where we're starting from. So we set it to 0, okay? And so now I'm also going to do, I've got my track here, and I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to label this Smpte. So I've got it down here. I've got my direct input on. It's on channel 24. I'm going to come over here with my jack cable, and I'm going to go Smpte LTC out. So I want to go out because I'm sending it from the Sync HD, and I want to record it into the tape machine. So I'm going to come up here to my MCI in on channel 24. So I'm going to send the sync from Pro Tools Sync HD out into channel 24. Okay? I'm going to come behind here, and now I got to put my record ready on channel 24, which is going to light it up in blue back there, yellow here. Now I said to you guys out of the gate, the best way to do this when you come in and start your session is literally click them all on record ready, all 24 tracks. This way you can do a full bulk erase of the tape on every track and record your Smpte on 24 all in one shot. This I would do as soon as you get in, get your reel up there, get this set up, get your session open, get your Smpte sound code set up, patch it, get ready to go. Now you might not want to patch all of this all at once, but at least you got to get at least this patch and at least your output from channel 24 back into Pro Tools in 24 so you can hear the Smpte, right? So what I'm going to do here now is we're all set there ready to go. I'm just going to press play here, and so I should basically be hearing it. I can see on channel 24 here that I have a level. If I undo my mute or undo the cut in the monitors, we can hear that. Did you remember when I told you guys what Smpte sounded like? Any left? Was I close? Maybe a little lower in frequency, but this is actually done at 1K. right? Quarter-wheel routes. So pretty cool when you think about it and think about that noise has got that much information embedded in it. It's pretty brilliant, man. I still in awe that the Society of Engineers created this in order for film, movie, and audio to sync together to be able to edit this stuff, like back in the 70s. The 60s. No, I think it was 70s. Does anybody know that? When it was invented? Should look that up. Should know that. Anyway, so we can hear it, so we know it's working right now, right? So we're gonna, and you can see right now that it's moving. Pro Tools is moving, right? And it's sending it. So we're gonna just stop that. We're gonna make sure it's back at the beginning again. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come over here to the tape machine, and we're gonna press play and record at the same time. That's the only way you can get it to record, right? Now we can see all the lights are there, it's recording, right? Now, here's something for you. You can actually press play if you want. So you can press play and then record to do a punch in, right? And then press play to punch out. Okay? If you press play to record in, but if you press record to record, if you keep pressing record again does not unrecord. The only way you can get out of record is to press play. Okay? But if you want to start recording right away, play and record at the same time. Okay? Alright, so we're just going to let it locate back as of now. So what we're going to do here is we're going to press play and record first on this unit so it's already recording and up to speed. And then once we get there, then we're going to come over here and we're going to press play on the space bar on the Pro Tools, and it starts to strike, and it's now sending that signal, which we can see the meter on channel 24 is roughly about -3, -2, -3 dB. I don't want it any hotter than that. If it's too hot, we run the risk of the actual Smpte time code distorting because it's literally getting saturated by the compression and by the tape. I don't want the sound to be breaking up, right? So I don't want any artifacts in it, so I don't want it to be too hot. But I don't want it to be too quiet that the signal's not strong enough for it to read. So around -3 dB is always a good area to be with your time code as far as level. Okay. So we'll just let it roll just a little bit further here. Now normally I would let this roll right out through the reel, sorry. Now if you guys are in doing your own session and you don't want to erase the whole reel at 33 minutes or 15 if you're running at 30 inches per second. But if you don't want to do that, at least double the time that your song length is in case you decide to take another take very quickly and then just transfer that all in one shot and move it around later. Is my suggestion to you, because you just never know what happens. And don't, if your song's 5 minutes long, don't just strike 5 minutes, because if it goes on a little longer or sustaining that note out or whatever, leave yourself a little bit of buffer room is what I'm saying. If you're coming in here and setting up and doing it, just let it run in the background, go do what you want to do. I usually leave this on so I can hear that it's going in the background, and I keep my eyes on the tape machine. I can see it's in record ready, so I'm hearing it and knowing it's there. When it gets to the end, it'll just roll off the reel and the tape machine will stop on itself. So you don't need to worry about damaging anything if it runs over. You'll still hear this because the tape machine stopped, but it's still in input mode, right? So you're still going to hear that Smpte generating, but you get my point. The reason I want to hear this is because if something happens with the tape machine or the Pro Tools that it's ended up stopping, then that's going to flag you to go, hey, wait, what happened there, right? And then run back in, because the last thing you want is like literally to realize it hasn't been rolling for the last half hour. I didn't get any of it down. It's like now you got to do it all over again, right? So that's just a hint to you, because I've literally had that happen. Where it's like, I'm like, okay, we're ready to record. It's like, wait, where's the Smpte? What the hell? What happened? Oh, damn, right? So, we're good there. So generally what we want to, go ahead.
Are we going to be dumping this into Pro Tools after or no?
No.
Okay.
Is this Smpte time code, that's a great question, Francois. This Smpte time code stays on the reel always. You can't record off it, and you don't want to re-record over it until you're done what you need to do with the reel and that song, right? Now, in your sessions, you're going to be erasing somebody else's time code because you're going to do your own. Don't rely on somebody else's time code, because if they wrote it, but then their song was only a few minutes long, but you see some time code there, you don't know how long that is. You might fast forward and hear time code again, and then fast forward 10 minutes and hear time code. But it might be 4 or 5 chunks of bad recordings from everybody else there, which all of a sudden it's going from 1 minute and 20 seconds to 3 minutes and whatever seconds, back to 2 minutes and 20, back to 1 minute and 30, right? Now your Pro Tools session's jumping all over, you won't be able to do anything. I never rely on somebody else's time code. I always make sure that it's mine. I've done it. That way I know I've printed it at the right level. I've started my session at 0 or hour 1 or whatever I wanted it to start at. And then I know that it's run all the way through non-stop, because having any corruption in time code is disastrous. I'll just tell you that right now. So rely on nobody else. Do your own fresh every time. That's my rule. If you follow by it, you'll do all right. So we're gonna stop it, okay? So at this point, usually I will stop the time code first and then stop the tape machine. Okay? So now I'm gonna locate back. So now we've transferred it, and I've erased all of this tape end too, right? So I'm just gonna go through and erase, or take these all off record ready, so I don't have a chance of erasing this time code, right? And at this point, it doesn't matter if you're in tape mode or auto input mode, the time code will transfer either way and lock up. Now, if we're recording, we gotta be on the auto input mode. And so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back to Pro Tools, and I'm gonna turn off the Gen Sync. It won't track it.